Welcome back to the show today. It's 6:18 on this Monday edition. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about this morning, but we were just talking a little bit, just kind of a sideline here about the kind of the wussification of America in the last segment, and this whole idea of putting caps on scores because we don't want to embarrass somebody. But Brent actually brought up a very good point about billionaires, right? So if you make too much money, then that's not fair. So we should tax it all away from you. And this is what you hear from a lot of the political campaign trails right now, whether it's Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, etc. But I'm going to give you the reason why billionaires should exist. You think about a company like Microsoft as an example. Microsoft has made thousands of people, potentially millions of people, depending on how you calculate it, much wealthier, right? Whether you own the company stock or whether you work for the company or et cetera, right? So, directly the impact of Microsoft has made a lot of people wealthy. But see, what people forget is that Microsoft has also generated an entire ecosystem of other businesses that have made people wealthy. So all the people that have made products that add on to Microsoft Windows or Microsoft platforms, Word, Excel, all the additional software, companies that supply products to Microsoft. Think about a computer manufacturer. Think about Dell Computers as an example, right? So Dell Computers has made Michael Dell very wealthy, but also all the companies that supply products to Dell to make those computers, right? They got to have the chips. They've got to have, the disk drives. They've got to have all the other parts that go into manufacturing computers. Think about Apple. Apple has made a tremendous number of people exceptionally wealthy directly as a company, whether you own the stock or whether you work for Apple. But all of the other products that have added on and tacked on and benefited from Apple computers has made a lot of people wealthy. And this kind of goes back to this whole idea about capitalism, and we've talked about this kind of. We've been kind of on a rant about this lately because it's something it's under attack right now by the liberal left. And this is important to understand, particularly when you're going to go to the polls and vote, about understanding exactly what you're voting for. Because when you vote to destroy the impact of what capitalism is and how it works, and again, this directly relates back to what we were just talking about a second ago with this whole idea of having a cap on scores. When you eliminate the ability to compete and succeed, you stifle innovation, you remove the desire to produce and to create, and you make the overall society less wealthy. One thing that we've talked about before is using it as an example of a classroom where you've got a bunch of kids in the classroom, they're all taking a test. And so you always have the one group of kids that stay up all night and they study and they come in, they ace the test, right? They make an A. And you've got the other group of kids that go out and party all night and they come in and fail the test. And there's always that bell curve in any test, right? And, this is so in order to make people feel better, professors put you on a curve. And so they say, okay, well, we're going to kind of curve up the bad grades. And that's not really fair to those that stay up all night, but, it's kind of accepted. But let's say in this particular case, the professor comes in and says, you know what? We're just going to give everybody a B. Okay, so everybody makes a B. Well, the people that stayed up all night and studied that had actually made an A, they're not happy, right? Because they got a B. The kids that, partied all night and came in with a hangover, they're happy because they got a B because they actually would have failed. Well, what happens at the next test? Next test is that the people that were studying all night to make an A, they go out and party, right? Because why study if I'm just going to get a B? So everybody comes in and everybody fails, and the professor says, okay, everybody gets a C now because, the average was a C. We're just going to average everybody in here. Well, this is what happens in socialism, is that once you remove that incentive for a few individuals to exceed and to develop and to grow and to create opportunity, it brings everything down to a lower level. So this is the problem with these ideas about, taxing the wealthy. Capital is fungible. It's liquid. I can move it anywhere, and today in particular, at the speed of light, right? Just, I can open up I'm standing right here in front of the computer. I can open up my bank account and I can wire money while we're on the air. I mean, it's just that I don't have to go to a bank anymore. I do it right here online. So capital is very, very easy to move very quickly. But outside of that, once you begin to stifle the ability for an opportunity, I should say, stifle the opportunity for people to make a lot of money, the answer is like, why do it? Why should I make all this money if the government's just going to take it away from me? So then people just don't do it, right? If I'm just going to wind up with a B, why am I going to, study all night to take the test and try to make an A? There's no point in it. And this is the part that we're teaching our children. Unfortunately, what we're teaching our children is that, yes, fun, fair, positive soccer. Everybody gets a trophy. We don't keep score. We're just all going to go out here and kick the ball around and call it a game. And everybody's going to be good. But you're removing the actual incentive. You're removing the lesson that you are supposed to be learning from competition. And competition always leads to two things: winners and losers. And people immediately associate this idea that being a loser is a bad thing. But you don't learn until you lose. There's not one successful person. I shouldn't say that. There's always one. But I will suggest that you will find it very challenging to find one very successful person that has never failed in their lifetime. They talk about overnight success, right? Man, that guy, he was an overnight success. It only took him 10 years, but yes, he was successful overnight. Not the case. Whether it's, if you live here in Houston, most people are familiar with Tillman Fertitta. He's a very successful, entrepreneur and restaurateur. But you look at, wealthy people all across the country. They either failed multiple times, or it took them a very, very long time of working and pushing and developing and trial and error in order to finally get to the point that they were an overnight success. It took them a decade or two or more in some cases. And yes, there are examples of people that just kind of fell back asswards into something and it worked out well the first time. Sure. I'm sure that is the case, just not in most cases. But this is the idea with the things that, happen with these ideas to where we say, well, this person shouldn't have this, or this team shouldn't be able to do this. They sound harmless on the surface, but they have much deeper rooted issues that ignoring these things or glossing over them or taking this idea that, well, simply they just don't matter. They do matter. And they may not matter today. They may not matter, next month or next year or maybe even 5 years from now. But the seeds that you plant have long-reaching consequences that ultimately show up. And this has happened throughout economies, throughout history. And, you look at countries and you say, wow, look at Venezuela as a good example. Puerto Rico, a variety of other countries. They made small changes where they said, oh, we're going to just, provide everybody this benefit. We're going to make it better for everybody by making everybody equal. And it didn't happen right away. It took years of this slow deterioration of economic viability, and you wind up in a very bad position down the road. And these are the choices that we're teaching our kids. We're teaching our kids today that everybody should be equal. Doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter what this is, right? It just none of this matters. Just do what you want to do. Be free, my friend. But these all have long-ranging consequences. I was just talking about Social Security recently. Social Security used to have 16 people paying in for it, for every person that drew out when Social Security was first put together. Nobody was supposed to live past 65. Today, there's roughly about 2 people paying into the system, and population growth in the United States is declining sharply, which means that in the future, that you have fewer and fewer people to pay into the system of the number of people that are drawing out. So all these things that we do, the choices that we make, and here's the ultimate point about this, is that before you go kill the billionaires, let's string them up and take all their money. Before we eliminate the value of competition, we need to really come back and think about what it is that we're really trying to achieve and not destroy the golden goose in the process. Be right back.
They can't have me, so they all come and dance beside me. Move with me, jack with me, and if you're good, they'll take you home with me. Dale a la cuerpa, alegría, Macarena. Pues cuerpo, dale la alegría, cosa buena. Dale a la cuerpa, alegría, Macarena. Hey, Macarena, all right.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for the Real Investment Report now at realinvestmentadvice.com.